being off tonight. We have a bunch of people up here tonight. I'll introduce them in a minute. So I was going to go over the 6 things that Lieutenant Hartman normally goes over on what this IBP meeting is about. So the first is we want to create a safe and secure environment. What are some things that we said, what was a safe and secure environment to all of us here in Richford? Why?
Like being able to walk down the street.
Being able to walk down the street safe, getting from point A to point B, and just feeling safe in general, right? In our own home. Okay, the second thing was to promote and foster community partnerships and relationships with local state police, community leaders, and local organizations. So tonight what we've done is we have brought, or they came, some of our local community partners here tonight. So I'll just do a quick introduction and then I'll let you all start off. So Kristen Pryor, she is the field director of the Agency of Human Services. Jody White, who works for Franklin Grand Isle Restorative Justice. Melinda White, she's from Phoenix House, and I'm awful because I don't remember what your name is.
Sorry, Troy Edwards.
Troy Edwards from Border Patrol. So what I thought tonight we could start off by doing was just letting them introduce themselves to you, learn about what they do, and if you guys have any questions for them, now would be the time to ask. Okay? Kristen?
Thank you.
Go first.
Thank you. I'm Kristen Pryor, and I work for the Agency of Human Services, and many of you may know what that is, but if you don't, it covers 6 departments. So it's corrections, health department, mental health, Department for Children and Families, Department for Vermont Health Access, and the Department for Aging and Independent Living. So 6 departments. It's the biggest agency in the state. And our biggest job is to provide benefits and assist the most vulnerable Vermonters. So typically people that are experiencing homelessness, substance use disorder, generational poverty, mental health issues, trauma, or any combination of those. Many people have lots of them. And so we administer a bunch of different benefits programs. We administer the Department of Corrections, which is usually in public safety. But in Vermont, we really believe people can change, and we want to offer people the opportunity to be rehabilitated and make a new start. So we have them in the Agency of Human Services, where we try at every juncture to get them to engage in new pro-social behavior. We administer the General Assistance Program, where people experiencing homelessness are put up in hotels when the shelters are full, which has been the situation for the last 6-7 months with the worldwide pandemic. So I think that is one of the reasons that we ended up here tonight to talk to you about that situation up here as well. And that's a pretty broad overview. My job is to be the voice of state employees up to the central offices of all those departments and the secretary, Mike Smith, and then to be the voice coming down from all those departments to our local partners in the community, because we are a big agency, but we're not big enough to provide all the mental health, substance use disorder, and other services, so we contract those out. To places like NCSS, Northwestern Counseling and Support Services, or Howard Center, or Family. No, the one that's the one out there on across the street from NCSS. It's a special services agency. NFI, thank you. Boy, the acronyms are hard.
Yeah. Too many.
So my job really is to coordinate between all the service providers that we have and our state employees and the departments to make sure that they're all working together and providing holistic services that build on people's strengths and that allow them to set goals and reach them, and do it in a way that we meet people where they are and help them build what they want want to go to. So right now it's mostly homelessness and housing during the pandemic. So that's the bulk of what I do, and I get to work with everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just awesome because it involves every facet of the community. In fact, in both of my districts, here's one example of work that's happening right now. I have Addison, Franklin, Grand Island, so I have 5,000 cloth face coverings in both districts to distribute to community partners, state employees, anybody that can use cloth face masks. So today I just delivered masks to people and they loved it. It was fun. And I have some in the car if you need them. But those are some of the things that we do when we were doing food drops at the airports. In the beginning, they weren't very friendly to humans. They were great at getting the food out quickly, but it left people sitting for hours on the tarmac in the heat with no bathrooms, and it was very inhumane. And so at the Agency of Human Services, we found a way to get them to let us in, and we got porta potties and EMT guys, and we made it so people didn't have to sit for 3 hours, and we made it a better system for people. It still got the food to them, but it was more humane. And so that's the kind of stuff that we try and cut through to get to the bottom line for what people need and get it to them.
Thank you, Kristen. So my name is Jody White, and I just want to thank all of you guys for being here this evening. So each and every one of you have a purpose, and you're all here for the same reason. The reason that I fit into this to this panel. So the work that I do at the Restorative Justice Center is a wide variety. My specific job is I do pretrial services. So I work with the State's Attorney's Office, the Public Defender's Office, Department of Corrections. I go in and out of facilities. I get referrals from all of those stakeholders. And in my position, anybody that has a substance abuse or mental health needs, they come to me, and I'm able to do soft handoffs throughout the community of Franklin County. And again, that's either through NCSS, that's through the Phoenix House, that's through Howard Center, and so in our house specifically, there's handoffs because everything's underneath one roof. So we have a housing coordinator underneath the roof, an employment specialist underneath our roof, somebody to help people get their licenses back under that roof. And so the list goes.
Victim services.
Victim services, and so the list goes on. So that's really what we're able to do, is to work directly with individuals that are either coming out of treatment, that are coming out of jail, or are just on their way there. And so it's my position to be able to refrain that from happening. And so a little back history on that, which I have a passion for the work that I do, is that I've been where all of these people that I work with are. I've done time behind the wall. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I haven't had a drink or a mind-altering substance in my body in over 5 years. And so that makes me have that passion that much more to help people not be able to go down the same path that I had to go through. And so the peer-to-peer relationships that I build throughout Franklin County, specifically in St. Albans, in Highgate and Swanton, which is a little closer than out here, which I wouldn't mind coming out here. And so I guess today was more of an introduction for me, because I would be interested in seeing what you folks are looking for and what my office could provide, or our community as a whole could provide, being able to set up maybe a satellite. I'm sure there's plenty of individuals out here that don't have a driver's license or have legal troubles that they would like to have some assistance with. And I know that you have the local, the Turning Point in Enosburg has satellited from St. Albans to Enosburg. That's an option, and I can provide some of the same services as they can as well. I think I covered everything.
Okay. My name is Melinda White. First, I just want to say I am not abiding by the 6-foot rule because we are in the same household. I just want to clarify that because I was feeling guilty. So my name is Melinda White. First and foremost, I'm a person in long-term recovery, and what that means to me is I haven't had to use a mood or a mind-altering substance since December 28th of 2011. And I'm strongly convinced that the purpose that I didn't die of my addiction is not because I'm better than or less than anybody else. It's because there was a divine intervention and there were people there to put their hand out and show me the way to recovery. So my biggest passion in life is recovery from addiction. So that being said, employment-wise, I recently started with the Phoenix House in New England approximately less than 2 weeks ago. I was on day 9 of my job with them. That being said, they've been absolutely phenomenal in letting me continue the work I've been doing for the last 8 years under the Turning Point of Franklin County, then with Northwestern Medical Center, and now with Phoenix House. And where my work began, especially in the community and outreaching more, I am on various boards. I've been on the Governor's Opioid Coordination Council, and my biggest goal is to advocate for people who aren't able to get their voice to the lawmakers, who aren't able to communicate and make sure that the people that are making decisions on our behalf know what's going on, to be the boots on the ground and to also deliver that information upwards. And my position has always been that community contact in Franklin Grand Isle County when people need help with services. We're still working on systems so there can be a more comprehensive way. If you or a loved one needed help with addiction, it really ought to be, here's a phone number that you call and you'll be navigated to all of the providers, and yet that's not the way that things are set up right now. I will honestly say I struggle sometimes navigating the system, and I've been working on it for years. So my biggest focus is not just about the drugs and the alcohol, because that's really just a symptom of an underlying issue. It's about changing those behaviors, it's about connection, and it's about the wraparound services. So we had, I was funded by a federal SAMHSA grant, which is Substance Abuse and Mental Health System Administration. I remembered it, Kristen. That's how I got hired into having more access to the people I needed who provide services to wraparound individuals that need support. And I've had a few very cool projects. I'd say probably one of my favorite ones, my brother-in-law is a retired state trooper now, but he did a big meth sweep in 2017, and I was able to partner and sit in the barracks with him. And what we did is a different approach where it's not, we've heard, I'm just gonna identify the pink elephant. I know that there's issues with substance use in Richford. Like that's very clear. So what I had done with him is, it's not something that can be arrested out of, it can't be punished out of, and yet there still has to be consequences, right? So with my brother-in-law and I teaming up in this sweep, what we did is offered people an opportunity to get connected to services, to get connected to treatment and recovery services. It doesn't mean their charges are going to go away, but by them being compliant, it's going to help them in the long run. And what we ended up finding is that with the ability to connect with them first, they realized, my brother-in-law didn't want to, charge them and have all these issues. He wants to help them, and at the same time, he needs their cooperation and communication. And by giving them the opportunity to have the help, they talked to him in a more trustful way that he was able to continue with the sweep. And on the flip side, they were able to get the help that they need. And the outcome of that sweep is phenomenal. And yet, again, we still got to get more systems in place for that intervention. Similar to what Jody said with being pretrial services coordinator, offering individuals who have gone down the wrong path an opportunity to get on the right path is key. That being said, I'm also a firm believer of consequences, because I didn't get in recovery because I didn't have consequences. So I think there's a fine balance with working with individuals but not enabling them. And by having the wraparound supports, so if we're looking at somebody struggling with homelessness, that's our biggest issue right now, especially with COVID. It's homelessness, and yet I still hear, well, the overdoses were higher than the COVID cases. So it's, again, that substance use is just, it's right there. And if people don't have transportation, childcare, housing, which is a basic need to even, how is somebody supposed to be successful in treatment and recovery in life if they don't know where they're going to sleep that night? It's all of those pieces. It's what we call, in the medical world, it's called a social matrix, where when you're treating somebody with addiction, you're not just treating, well, how much did you use? What are you using? That really is a very small piece. The most important part is, what does your whole life look like? And how can we focus on strengthening your all-around life in what we call recovery capital, so you can be a productive member of society, so you can learn how to be responsible, give back. And that's what happens with people in recovery often. They get in recovery, they're very passionate, like Jody said, because he's also in recovery. So we have an appreciation and an empathy for people that are struggling with an addiction. And we also have, pardon my French, but we have a BS meter. So a lot of the stuff I used to play, when I hear it coming back to me, it's like, okay, I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. I remember using that line. I've been arrested multiple times. I've been to how many treatment centers? I mean, I've spent almost 2 years residential total in treatment centers before I finally was willing to stop fighting the solution. And it's so amazing how life's not difficult. It's my resistance to letting it happen that's difficult. So if I stop fighting letting life happen, it's not so challenging. And that's with every aspect of my life, but especially with recovery. So my biggest goal for tonight, I'm the resource queen. I want to make sure you guys have resources. I came here with Amy, I don't know, it was probably 4 weeks ago, and just kind of sat in the back and listened. And I was like heartbroken when I realized how little has been provided to this community of information and resources. So I did bring a community resource directory. This is also available through the St. Albans Messenger electronically, but I brought some hard copies. And in that directory, you can literally look up by food. If you're struggling with food insecurity, go to food. And there's all of the different resources with treatment, recovery, addiction, medical, banking. There's every possible aspect of a life need that's in that directory with the local providers that do the work. I also brought, Jody mentioned the Turning Point, and I wonder how many people even know what that is. I brought their flyers with that information. They're a recovery resource center, and they provide a lot of peer services. I also brought some information with housing. These are one of my favorite things. I'll just leave up here if anybody's interested, but they're called harm reduction packs, so another acronym, the HRPs. But this has been something I have trained and provided, I would have to say, thousands of Narcan kits since they became available through a pilot program. And there's also education inside these bags. There's education on Hep C, HIV, treatment resources. This is the Narcan kit itself. I've got tons of stories I won't get into right now about the Narcan and how it works. And there's just a lot of, we think about preventions, you know, your sanitation gloves. There's a lot of great information in these, and these are available like at no charge. So just a few examples of what can be provided in this community to help you be healthier and to help address some of the challenges that you're facing, because you ought to be safe, comfortable, confident in your community, and that's not what I heard a month ago. So that's what we hope to bring, just a little bit of help with that. I'm going to stop there.
Hope.
Yes, exactly. Hold on, pain ends. Okay, I'm going to turn it over because I could probably talk all night.
No, I could.
Most of you know what I do. I'm here representing the U.S. Border Patrol because since the 1920s we've been integrated in this community. The people who've been here longer than me know that we used to be right in the back of the post office here, and our station is right down the road. A lot of times, as you guys know, when stuff happens in the community, we're right here. So if someone is having an overdose or someone is having a domestic violence situation, many times if VSP might be 45 minutes out, or Franklin County might not be on that particular night, and we're the ones that are responding. And with that comes a sense of responsibility for us. That you know, at our station, we say things like, you know, country and community, because we play sort of a dual role here. We have the big picture stuff, the national stuff that involves keeping people like terrorists from walking through the woods into the United States, or people from, you know, trafficking narcotics into the United States from Canada, and human trafficking. And those are the big picture things. But most of our time is spent responding to things in the community. And even though our authorities are limited because we are a federal agency, sometimes we're the first people there who are interacting with people in the community until a state or local agency can arrive. So you guys have seen us, you know, off and on here for that reason, because what happens in the community affects us, and what happens with us is going to affect the community. So there's a symbiotic relationship at work, and and I know Richard Parker, our patrol agent in charge of the station, is dedicated to this community. So, and like I said before, you know, any questions you have of me as far as our role in a national sense or our role in a community sense, feel free to ask.
Any questions?
The restorative justice person, I think, is the one I need to have. If a person is low income or already homeless or whatever, and they need to use any of your services, are they charged, or how does this get paid for?
So there's no charge with my particular program. No. So it would be, the majority of it works on a referral basis. So you can, the way that my particular program works is that it can either be a referral from a public defender, it can be a referral from a state's attorney or the court themselves, and then individuals can also self-refer. So if they have anything that if they are seeking help with either mental health or substance use or any of the other needs that may be transportation, housing, whatever the case may be, then I can be that contact person. And if I can't help them or answer the questions, then I can do a soft handoff to a community partner that can help them.
I think that might be one of the reasons why, well, to begin with, people don't know about some of the services you offer, but they also need to know that they can approach you, and, you know, a lot of them wouldn't have insurance to begin with, so that would be a deterrent for them to even think about approaching you, you know, because
Insurance.
most everything you have to pay for today. There are very few things that, there's very little help you can get without a big medical bill, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so there's no fees affiliated. Let me phrase this properly. So if an individual was referred to me through court, because I have two separate programs, so if it was through court, and if I have a Tamarack program that it utilizes, that I take anywhere from 90 days to 120 days to make sure that the individual, one, doesn't reoffend, and then has wraparound services at the end of that time. At that point in time, if they don't have those wraparound services, and neither myself, the individual, or the other parties involved feel that they're not comfortable enough for me to successfully complete, then I can extend that time. That particular program comes with a fee for that program, but I can also put that on a sliding scale or dismiss it altogether.
I see.
So that's, fee-wise, that's the only things that may come up. But that's to, like anything else, to make a program continue to last. A lot of our stuff is grant funded, and if you're familiar with grants, they only last for so long, so we need to try to self-sustain, and so that's where those small fees come in.
Well, I was just thinking if somebody's homeless already, or, you know, barely getting by, it seems like the last thing they would be thinking about is running up a medical bill that could be avoided, you know?
Well, I think the resource for something like that, like if somebody was struggling with homelessness, so people like Jody and I, we're referral partners, right? We don't provide that service. We don't necessarily, although we've been known to fill out applications with people, but the agent, but what we do is warm hand off to the agency. So in Franklin Grand Isle, the agency would be community action. Like at the end of the day, that is your housing hub, as I would call it. The other thing is there's the Samaritan House, which is our local homeless shelter, and I'm on the board of directors of Samaritan House as well. And that's also another resource. So between whether a person goes to the Samaritan House, which is essential, because even if they don't have space, they still have housing navigators that were hired on when COVID hit. They've got and I'm not just building up the staff because I'm on the board. Like they truly are absolutely amazing. Kristen knows too.
They're angels on earth.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially when COVID hit. So the whole idea is to make sure that if you were to connect with somebody like Jody or somebody like myself, who we might not provide the service, but we'll get you connected with the right agency that does. By just hearing kind of give me the overview, and I would immediately say with what you were just talking about, that's definitely a community action. Let's make a phone call there, see if you can, you know, check your income, check your eligibility for, there's so many vouchers. Medicaid, exactly. There's so many different options. So that's really our kind of purpose, is to be that contact, that point contact, not necessarily provide the service. But that being said, if you're getting the assistance from community action, they don't send you a bill after. Like, oh, I just talked to you and helped you fill out an application. You get it, send me, it's not a billable service. So it's like a no charge service provided. Same as the recovery center, which is why they're so beneficial and I think extremely underutilized, because all of the services provided are at no charge. Whereas at a doctor's office, obviously there are going to be fees associated. But that's the beauty of the position that Phoenix House hired me on for, is when I meet with people, I don't bill anybody either. Like it's a unique position that was created through a federal grant, but continues because it's so beneficial, is having that person who can be a contact. I go in Amy's office often. I share a lot of, many of our patients have supervision, they have DCF workers, Department of Corrections, so I work very closely with all of our community partners to support that individual, and then whatever services or need, do that warm handoff. And most of the services are no charge when we're talking of community action and housing
Or at
agencies.
least income-based.
Right,
There's a level of, like, if you make so much, you don't qualify for the benefit of the program. And so most of the work that we do is with lower income families that are struggling to stay housed safely and sustainably. And we have, in the whole state of Vermont, very little housing stock. And so it's hard for low-income people to compete, especially with the big towns where there are college kids that can pay rent, you know, a lot quicker and more readily than low-income working families in Vermont. And so we're always looking for new housing stock and new ways to support people experiencing homelessness who have had barriers for a while. Because when we look at what happened with COVID, for years we've had a very difficult time kind of getting our arms around exactly how many people are experiencing homelessness and where they are when they're not coming in the winter months, and trying to really understand what the need is. And so when the pandemic hit, that really helped us get a number. And we had 1,800 people in hotels for about 5 months. We're down to about 1,200 now, families and individuals and couples. And the state has a 3-tier approach to housing those families that starts with families on Reach Up. And then we go to anybody over 62 disabled, and then it will be the regular tier. And so what we've learned is we have this group of people in almost every district of singles and couples that have been homeless for a while, that struggle to maintain housing, and they're the ones that are going to be the hardest to house this time around as well, because they're going to be the second or third tier that we get to, and we won't have as much housing, we won't have as many vouchers. So we have a good plan. We are working to end family homelessness in Vermont, and I think that we'll be close to net zero in a year or so when we get through all the people that are in hotels and are able to house the families. The individuals and the couples are more difficult. And that's why all of us are here to talk about how the state attempts to provide services for those people and hold people accountable and give them that helping hand so that they will be able to change and become a contributing member to your community rather than somebody that's causing problems. So I spend a lot of time mediating, urging, cajoling, building relationships, rebuilding relationships, bringing people together to find common ground so that we can move forward. Because the reality is that we're all more alike than we are different, and we all want the same basic things. We want a place to live, we want a purpose in life, we want to be loved, and we'd like to have work that's meaningful, you know? We're all pretty much the same. But there are things that get in the way, and so the Agency of Human Services is here to try and help people figure out how to get past, around, or through the things that are in the way. We do a lot of work with landlords up here, trying to get them to improve properties. Right now there's a lot of, well, they're about done, but the last couple months we had some really big programs that allowed landlords to take properties that may have been offline for whatever reason, and up to $30,000 per unit revitalize them so that they can come back online and house people that are currently in hotels. But I have to say that I'm very honored and grateful that Vermont took the steps that they did when the pandemic started to put people experiencing homelessness into hotels, because the shelters were all full. And we didn't lose anybody to COVID that was experiencing homelessness, and that's not true in other states. They were some of the last people that got considered And there were a lot of people that were homeless that died in other states, so Vermont did the right thing. Now we have to figure out how to house them. And so we got, that hill to climb, but we'll get there.
When you find housing for a person, does anyone go and check that housing that they're going into?
If it's gonna be paid for through a state or a federal program, yes, it has to be inspected by a housing inspector by the Vermont State Housing Authority. There's a different one for every kind of area in the county. And so, yes, if we're gonna expend state or federal money to help somebody get housed, which is usually first, last, or deposit, or sometimes all three, then we have to inspect it to make sure that it meets habitation and that it meets safety and fire codes. And if it doesn't, we allow the landlord a certain amount of time to bring it up to code, but if not, we won't sign the lease and we won't give them money.
So people that are living in one room with a husband and wife or a couple, her laws are for husband and wife, and 3 children in one room, that's acceptable?
In a hotel room?
Well, if you want to call it a hotel.
I'm sorry, what?
If you want to call it a hotel room.
Kristen, I think you're talking about the process,
Okay.
that's what the whole
Yeah,
issue
that's
is
what I
then,
just wanted to
so-
make sure if we were
Yep.
kind of going there. Yeah, no, it's not ideal. It absolutely is not ideal. And as Melinda was saying earlier, we have seen across the state, as have other places, a significant rise in people relapsing, people abusing drugs and alcohol, domestic violence, violence in general across the state in all of our GA hotels where people have been essentially stuck for 6 months because they're experiencing homelessness and have nowhere else to go.
We have these people that are crammed in this area, and they're sitting out in front, they got no place, and it's like, there was a real ruckus there on Saturday morning, people shouldn't have to live amongst this business.
People shouldn't what?
We shouldn't have to live amongst this way. I walk a lot, and I live on the other end of town, and I walk by there, and there's like 3 little kids out there. They got no place to play, they've got nothing, and they're not what the parents are doing,
No,
but
I
anyway,
agree with you.
it's a horrible situation.
And I don't know if it's good news or bad news, and I don't know if you all are aware of this, but the state has made a decision that we're gonna be easing out of that hotel. We only have 4 rooms there now that we're utilizing. We had 14 or 15 for most of the past 6 or 8 months that we've been utilizing that for the pandemic. And we are gonna stop using that hotel. For a lot of reasons, not just because of what you mentioned. It's a long way from most of the treatment providers in St. Albans. Transportation is an issue. So that is the situation that's happening right now.
And I have to add to that too, because I had a feeling that would be something that would be, for you guys, you'd probably feel kind of comfort with that, knowing that that's no longer going to be used for GA funding, at least for right now. But also that when you were asking about like having, 2 parents and 2 or 3 children in one room, is that ideal? And I mean, absolutely not. It's so not ideal, and yet one thing that I often say in our housing meetings is that it's a lot more ideal than being outside in the winter. So that's where the challenge is that there was an article in the Messenger last weekend that was we have so much funding coming down the pike for COVID to get people housed, which is unusual, right? Like, we have ample funding. The problem is we don't have any place to put individuals for more permanent housing. So the hotels are definitely not ideal. Any hotel, even if it's a nicer hotel, any hotel is not ideal, and yet it's a lot more ideal than people sleeping outside. And I think our biggest fear is, a year ago, our community was working super hard to open a warming shelter. And because of COVID, that's not opening. And even if we did have the funding to open it, we wouldn't be able to because people can't maintain the 6-foot rule. So one of the challenges that, I'll say maybe it's just, I know it's not just me, but for me personally is I see the people that are homeless. And by being with the Samaritan House and then being the position I've been in the community, when individuals reach out to me and they have no place to go, like my biggest fear now is it's gonna get cold really soon. My husband was just out today picking up tents and sleeping bags, and these are the resources that we're gonna at least have as backup to give to people, but it's heartbreaking to see. And the other, I guess, one thing I just wanna bring awareness to is that there are some people that struggle with homelessness that also struggle with bad behavior, for sure. There's also a lot of people that have never experienced homelessness until now because of COVID. So it's not, it's, you know, I sometimes see where there's like a judgment on individuals struggling, and it breaks my heart because that's not everyone. And people, just like Kristen said, we're very much alike. Like, we just need those basic needs, like to know where I'm going to sleep tonight, and God forbid it's in a tent when it's 5 degrees out in Vermont. So that's something that I know that we're constantly, like, there's so much behind the scenes that people don't see, and it's probably good because a lot of it gets squashed when funding goes away. But on the flip side, when it comes to light, it's extremely exciting, and that, you know, the loss of that warming shelter was a huge blow to our community, because it was at least something that we're looking forward to. So now we spend a lot of time, I mean, our last housing meeting, we pulled in a few landlords and a Burlington police officer is passionate with it. It's like people who are just random and shooting for the same cause that we're looking at. Can we find a farmer that'll let us put military grade tents on their property? And is that ideal? Absolutely not, but it's more ideal than not having even that kind of shelter, like that minimal shelter. So we're really working hard and this isn't as, you know, states and fed as much as it's like grassroots and as a community. Like, what can we do as a community to pull together and help those people that are literally not gonna have a place to go? And that was my fear when I heard that the crossing's no longer gonna be an option for GA funded individuals. And yet there's that part of me that was grateful, because I know plenty of people that have gone and it wasn't the right atmosphere for them. And on the flip side, it's also saved a few people's lives. And like, you know, okay, so we can't use that, I get it, but where are we going to have these people go now? Because all of our other hotels are full, so that's like another, you know, a whole new topic. But it's just to say that I couldn't agree more when I hear, like, is this really ideal, having all these people crammed in one room for 5-6 months? It's a horrible situation. My heart goes out to them. At the beginning of COVID, again, my husband and I did food deliveries before the state had it, because nobody expected this pandemic. So there was approximately 6 weeks, including Saturdays and Sundays, that individuals in hotels needed food. And we went every single day, sometimes together, sometimes separately, but every single day, including Saturday and Sunday, to our local, he doesn't like soup kitchen, community kitchen, Brother Bob's community kitchen, Martha's Kitchen. And this man was not anticipating a pandemic either, and yet he managed to bag hundreds and hundreds and eventually thousands of lunch, like meals, that we could go deliver to people in the hotels. And when, at the time, I was with Northwestern Medical Center, and our addiction director was asking, you know, how are people doing? And I ended up losing my job anyway, which gave me the flexibility to be those boots on the ground. But, you know, I was amazed by the resilience of the people in the hotels. Many of the ones that I know that have been diagnosed with substance use disorder, they, you know, and people like Jody and I do, like, we've already been to hell and back. We've been planning for a pandemic our whole life when we're struggling with addiction, that it's kind of like, to see the way that they were handling it was so amazing. And it just shows me that if people have, you know, that partnership, because they were becoming little communities within those hotels, that they're able to stay strong through a national crisis, like this global pandemic. Like, I saw a lot of people that were healthy with secure housing, good income, no fear of not having their food, no fear of not having clothing, that didn't handle it as gracefully. So there's something to be said for people who struggle through, press through, when they come out the other side. And yet the challenge that we have, and I'm going to say as a community, is what can we do as a community to find not ample housing or best case scenario, but some kind of an alternative to sleeping on the streets, because that's a community problem too. So
Last Thursday or Friday, Melinda called me and she said, I don't know what to do. I have a young man, he's working full-time, he has a 5-year-old daughter, they're living in his car.
In Richford?
Well, that's the interesting piece. He works in Burlington, his childcare is in Richford. Is that right?
close to Richford.
Close to Richford.
Much closer to Richford than it would be to St. Albans or Chittenden County.
And he's got a good job with a concrete company.
So he makes too much money to get help.
So he couldn't get a GA-funded hotel because he was a little over income. But luckily, my position allows for some flexible funding. And really, my position is about when the system isn't working for Jody, figuring it out for him on an individual level, but then on the systems level, why did it not work for him? Because he's probably not the only one experiencing that problem. And then go back to the system and figure out what we need to do as an agency to make that better for people, or make it more accessible, or make it easier to access, or whatever it needs to be. So because of that, I was able to put this man up in a hotel, because even though he's over income for general assistance, he does qualify for the rehousing money through COVID. And so because he makes enough money to go rent an apartment, he can get enough money right now, like first, last deposit, and all his rent through the end of the year paid. And then he would be housed sustainably and successfully. But otherwise, they were sleeping in his car. And so those are the kinds of things that every day I get to try and pull apart and unravel and see, like, do they qualify for this? Do they qualify for choices for care? Do they qualify for Medicaid? Like, how can we put a package together for them that gets them housed, and then if they want to work, if they're not disabled, back to work, and then keep their kids in school? So again, the thing about resiliency for people that are staying at the crossing is, I just think it's so amazing, especially the people that have had kids, that they haven't lost their mind.
Mhm.
I am fortunate to live alone with my 2 little dogs, and I have felt crazy many times during this pandemic. And I have a nice yard, I can come and go as I please. And so I can't even imagine what it's like for all of our people across the state experiencing homelessness that are stuck in hotels hoping to get housed. Yeah.
I had a conference call today with DCF on that whole issue with what's going on up there, and I think maybe from the little bit I've heard is, one of the big things is, yeah, I think maybe everyone feels bad for someone who's homeless, but what you're not taking into consideration with that issue is, it's not just the homeless person that you're letting stay there. Once they get residency, their friends come, their friends' friends, their friends' kids. So you had there's 5 rooms up there being rented. So essentially there should have been no more than maybe 10 people there, but on a weekend there's 25 or 30. There's people from God only knows where that are coming there. So I feel like that system's a little bit broken. Like, go ahead, and if a homeless person needs a place to stay, or the guy like you're explaining the story about, that's one thing, but you can't stop who they bring to visit, and and that's where we don't have the resources here to take care of that. We have enough problems.
Yeah, and if they're sending people here that have an addiction problem, this is certainly not the place that they should be staying, because that's not helping them at all. And we already are struggling here in Richford. We get a bad rap already, and then when you drive through, I'm sorry, and see kids outside in the summer in a little blue pool, there's a grill out there. It's just not something as us as a community want people to see when they come through town. You got a restaurant here and then on the other side.
So let me, and this is not a cop-out, but I just want to explain the way the program works, because I didn't understand it, and I felt the same way that you did. And what I learned is that the state, the Department for Children and Families Economic Services Division, contracts with individual hotels throughout the state for a number of beds for people experiencing homelessness. The hotels then make their own rules about who they allow in, what kind of behavior they allow, what kind of behavior they don't allow, and we don't have any control over their rules.
There's no rules there. No. None.
See, we don't control that.
No.
We just contract for rooms.
Exactly, and I think that before they do that, and Andy brought this up a few meetings ago, that it should be something that goes to the select board before it's ever even allowed, I think, in our town. It should be voted on, I think, before.
Because what you're doing is, when you do that, in this particular situation, because I know the whole situation, you basically, the state has given them a green card. You go ahead, you can do whatever you want under this COVID relief housing package, okay? However long this may have lasted, hadn't we, maybe hopefully got to the bottom of it, but, so it could have gone on until, who knows, May, June, July of next summer, and then when the COVID thing stops, now the landlord thinks they have a green light to continue to keep doing the same things that he's been doing, when it's not even zoned to do what he's doing there.
It's not zoned to be a hotel?
It's zoned to be a hotel, but it's not zoned to be an apartment building.
I don't understand how it turned into an apartment building.
There's 20 people living there. Call it what you want to call it, but I would call it an apartment building. In order to do what he's doing, he's basically done, it's a change of use. So he would have had to come to our zoning and say, well, I want to change my use of this and make it into an apartment building versus a hotel.
Okay, I'm a social worker. I'm not a zoning person. But all the hotels that we contract with, they operate as a hotel, the same as this one. And people don't have to check out. It's the only rule in the state that general assistance is allowed to let people stay longer than 28 days because it's a program. But we're not renting apartments. We're renting per day, and it's just been long. People have been in the same place because of the pandemic. In the past, people didn't stay as long because there was cold weather.
Now, who's going to go tell him that, okay, this program's over, you have to stop doing that? Because he's going to continue to keep doing it, and now that's a burden that's handed to the select board in the town and the zoning administrator to have to square that problem away. It's like you give
Let me
them
just make sure I understand what you're asking. So, right now, Economic Services, the state has made a decision to stop using the hotel. We are using 4 rooms now. When those people are vacated, we won't be using any more rooms there.
They promised me today, October 30th, would be hopefully about the end of it.
Okay, that's great. I hadn't heard that. And so after that, Silas
Yep.
can run.
He will probably continue to keep doing the same thing that he's doing now.
Right, he has a property and he can run it how he sees fit as long as the town and the zoning allow him to do what he's doing. It's not a state problem. We have no control over how he runs the hotel. We simply rent rooms. And he can kick people out, and he has, on many occasions, kicked people out of there for bad behavior, that then we have to have a period of ineligibility where they can't get a room because of their behavior. They're held accountable. Sometimes 7 days, sometimes 14 days, sometimes 30 days. People can't get housed because of their behavior. But once we quit contracting rooms, we won't have any input into anything, and we don't have any control over his rules anyhow.
Right.
That's a hard thing that I didn't understand, because I felt like you, that if we're contracting for the bulk of the rooms, we should have some input on rules, but that's not the way it works.
Right.
They're private property owners, landowners who get to decide what happens on their properties within zoning and town and city ordinances.
I understand what you're saying. Maybe you're missing my point. My point is, he was told by the governor, you can go ahead and do this with your property. I already know because we've already talked to him. He swore at my zoning administrator. He doesn't want to work at all with the town of Richford. He said, I'm going to do whatever I want to do with my place, and you're not going to tell me any different.
Oh, I'm so
Because the governor told me I could do what I'm doing. Well, yeah, he did for a short period of time, but my point is, you gave him an inch, and now he's going to take a mile. And the town is going to be the ones who have to fight to get it back to the way that it should be ran, like a hotel room. I mean, I guess the only good thing is, he's not going to be getting free money anymore to rent them hotel rooms out. So I guess that's an upside of it, but my personal opinion is he's going to keep renting it exactly like he's doing and turn it into apartments, and it's not zoned to be that. But because you've had people living there for so long, I think he gets the impression that it is.
They aren't even apartments.
No,
They don't have.
Obviously, if there were apartments, it probably wouldn't be an issue.
Right, they don't have kitchenettes. They don't have. Yeah, I mean.
How do these people eat?
Well, right now the state is still providing meals to them.
You said something about if federal money was used, that it had to meet all the codes and everything?
For apartments, if we use.
Just the apartments, not a motel room?
No.
He doesn't
Yes.
have to meet any state codes or anything like that?
Well, I don't know for certain, but I would believe that any hotel that we contract with should meet habitability and zoning for people to live in. Yes, I think it should meet that, and if it doesn't, you could certainly have an inspector go in and take a look.
Now, another thing I wanna ask, where is your office?
My office is in St. Albans on 27 Federal
In
Street.
St. Albans, can I ask the gentleman where his office is?
My office is on 120 North Main Street, St. Albans.
And the lady next to you?
I'm working remotely right now, and we're searching for a location in Franklin County to,
Okay. So we are at the very end of everything. How come we seem to get most of the people up this way? You moved some people into the crossing Friday night. I went by Saturday, there was 2 state troopers, a sheriff there over a conflict.
All day they were there.
And then I heard Saturday night there were 2 ambulances called to the crossing.
yeah, I
2
can,
separate people, same ambulance call. Right there, in one day they come in and look at what it's taxed us on. I mean, we're lucky to see the state police every once in a while, I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Border Patrol we usually see a lot of. Sheriff, what are they here, 2 days a week?
Yeah,
3 days a week. In St. Albans, I know you don't have a lot of places to put these people, but you have the facilities to take care of their problems, don't you?
We have services, but there are services here as well. You have the
Not
notch,
as good as in St. Albans.
right, but you also have DOC that outposts here one time a month, economic services one time a month. You have the notch, and we're happy to bring services here. And what I would say to you is Middlebury is my second district. Middlebury has had people shipped in from all over the state. 2 weekends ago, we had a gentleman from Springfield who's also been up at Dartmouth. He goes in 3 different districts. He cannot meet his daily living skills unless he's clean and sober. The minute he leaves any hospital setting, he starts using and is incapacitated, and then the ER has to come, and it's the same thing. We have people that aren't where they want to be because we don't have enough hotel rooms, so we're shuffling them all over the state, not just here. We have people that, this guy's from Springfield, ended up in Middlebury, and then he ended up at Dartmouth.
But you can see my point, we're at the end here.
Yeah, we're seeing the same stuff in hotels across the state. Really bad behavior, assaults on staff, assaults on people
We
that
have
work
enough
at the
problems
shelter.
with our own town, we don't need these other people being shipped in.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not that we're shipping people in that aren't from here. We try and keep people that are from Franklin County in Franklin County. But sometimes we don't have enough hotels. And right now, we're putting people in Lamoille County, Chittenden County, and other places in the state because there happens to be a hotel available for them.
that being said too, I think it's helpful to highlight that, because I totally get what you're saying and agree with you. Especially if it's causing issues, but hence the reason that GA is no longer going to be using the Crossing Hotel. Because you're absolutely right, there was the combination, it's not just because of because I'm fully aware of everything that happened over the weekend. I've heard it from, I can't even say how many people over the last couple of days, as well as saw letters. So fully aware of it, and that's a big piece of it. Things like that happening are a big reason. But the other part is because, just as you said, you were spot on, because the resources are too far away. So again, it's just, it hasn't worked. So that being said, I guess I just want to make sure I'm on the record for saying that moving forward, that decision, like GA funding is no longer going to happen at the crossing. If things continue to happen at the crossing, the state doesn't have any control over that. And that's where I get back to we as a community and we as the smaller community partners, how can we come together to work on whether it is, maybe has the place been inspected? Is there education we can give to the landlords? Are there different services or things that we can do? And at the end of the day, like, take our town back. What does that look like? What can we do? Because waiting for or hoping that the state or the feds are going to jump in, they give a lot of great support, but at the end of the day, each unique community needs to find a way to pull together and sometimes find the solutions from grassroots, and that's where I've seen some of the best services developed, or it's, you guys know the answer, you have the minds, you have the drive, so how can we help you make that happen here? Say a couple hands.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
how are we supposed to pull our little small community together when you shovel these so-called beautiful people into our town? You wanna know what I've been through? This Saturday, I was sitting on my porch with my granddaughter, 3-year-old girl, and these beautiful people from New York with assault charges, with guns on them, have threatened my family, they assaulted me. I've been leaking blood out of my teeth every morning. I've been in pain. I have migraines every night, okay? From these beautiful people you moved into our town. I understand good people, but these people, you have no idea who you put into our little town. No clue. People that lived here their whole life, I've lived here my whole life. People that lived here their whole life, you know what they do when they go by that crossing? They floor it. Because they're scared shitless, excuse my French. But you people have no clue. And I appreciate everything you do for everybody who deserves it. They don't deserve it. Their vehicle was right on the internet from stealing from Tractor Supply, from stealing from people's homes. The guy pointed a gun right at me. They're packing heat and nobody arrested them.
And that was gonna be my question, if there were any arrests made, because, you know, for one piece of it is that the individuals that, and again, we don't put all of the population in that hotel, I wanna make sure that part's clear. We're not selecting all of the people in that hotel. Right now, we have 4 people in that hotel, out of the entire hotel, and I'm fully aware, without going in detail, especially with the camera here, that there are other people that are staying at that location that are not healthy for this community, but they're also not getting their rooms paid for by the state. So I just want to at least highlight that piece of it, because I totally agree with you. I couldn't agree more, because I hear the stories constantly.
Man, if they did that to me, they'd do it to you.
Absolutely.
These people were on heroin, they were messed up, they do not belong here. They're bringing it into our town. I know they are, I see it, I'm not blind.
Right, see, we're not powerful enough to move them out because we're not funding them, but how can we get them out? Like, how can we bring resources here? How can we get them either clean and sober or arrested? That's kind of, because that's the options, like I said, it's either accountability. If somebody wants help, they actually want it, we will go to the ends of the earth to get them connected. But I've also, like I said, the work that I did with Vermont State Police, the other piece of it is we want people held accountable. If people don't want to change, if they don't want to make a difference in their behavior and they don't want to accept the help, please lock those guys up, right? So that's the goal, is how can we access them to do that work, to find out if they need to be locked up or they need help and they're willing. Because I so agree with you, and when I heard you sharing, my heart goes out to you for dealing with
I got
that.
assaulted and they're looking right after the guys, they didn't do a thing, they wouldn't touch them.
Is this the sheriff's?
State troopers, the same ones that come here and give the little speech. The same guy, the same gentleman. He sat right there and I'm bleeding right in front of him. He knows this guy assaulted me, knows he had a gun. Nobody touched him. He told me to go home or they're gonna arrest me if I defended myself. So, I don't know, maybe I'm just messed up in the head.
So you see, that's some of the problems we're having.
That's what we're dealing with.
And not only, like, to get off topic a little bit from the crossing, I mean, and we've talked about this before this meeting, you know, and a few people got a little bit defensive about it. Like, we have a lot of Section 8 housing in Richford, and people need Section 8 housing. There's certain people that do, but we have an overabundance of it. We have, I don't know the exact number, but it is a lot of rental units in Richford. You know, we've had these discussions already at these meetings. You had generational people who lived here for years and years and years, and then their kids moved away, and they passed away. So their houses got sold for cheap money. So a lot of people bought them, and it's, you know, there's good landlords in Richford, and there's bad landlords. And this Section 8 money and all the other money that the state contributes for housing, it's so easy. Like, if you owned a business, I mean, think of it as you don't have to collect your money. Someone's going to deposit a check into your account for you every month. It's easy, and there's too much of that in this community. And I mean, we've had meetings. I had a meeting a year and a half ago with TJ Donovan about this, and oh, we're gonna help you, we're gonna do as much stuff as we can for Richford, we understand that that's a problem, and it's a ripple effect, it doesn't stop. If anything, I think that's why you see people so frustrated with what went on at the crossing, was because, and on one hand, everyone says, well, we're gonna help you, let's look into this, you do have too much, I mean, they've admitted it, there's too much Section 8 housing in Richford. We don't even have the resources for that, and then this crossing thing, I think, just puts everybody over the top, because it was like, it's almost like a slap in the face. You work so hard to try to make a difference, and then here's 20 more, and we're trying to fix the 20 previous ones still, and it doesn't stop.
I think too, Penny, by a lot of the people, they don't have access to the resources, so like Jody said about maybe getting an outpost here, I think there's different things that we can maybe talk about getting more services to come to Richford to help the people out, and then maybe too, once those people have support, that's gonna help out too. You might not see a big difference at once, but I really do believe that if the people who are in the situations that they're in, that's all that they know, then you have the resources coming into the community so they can learn something else. Of course, you're still gonna have your bad apples no matter what, okay? You're gonna have to deal with them no matter what. But the people who are trying, they won't feel as stuck anymore, and they're gonna wanna do better, because there's gonna be a lot of services that can be provided to them. I think here in Richford, I mean, I've lived here pretty much my whole life, right? So there's not really any resources here for people, or if they are, maybe when they come here once a month, it's not advertised enough so nobody knows that they're even here. So that's why they're only here once a month, but maybe if there was a need and it was advertised, then they would be here 2-3 times a month. So obviously we need it, but we need to show that we need it. So however that's being done, maybe we can work on that a little bit and see if we can get those resources in here.
Would you have access to like a per capita number? I mean, we know what our population is in Richford. Like what would be the amount of Section 8?
I can try and get that number.
You know what I mean? Like, how do we compare to,
Right.
how do we compare to Jay? Or how do we compare to Enosburg? Or, like our surrounding towns?
I'm not sure I can get it by town. It would probably be more by county, but I can ask the Vermont State Housing Authority to give me that information, and I can certainly report it back to you.
Yeah, I would be curious because I'm sure that our percentage, we could go around and count all the, the rental units. It would be a waste of time. We all know there's too many.
But if we think that a lot of them are up to code or whatnot, that's something else that we can report. We can report it and say, hey, this apartment is probably not up to code because they're missing 3 windows and they have cardboard up in them. Like those are things that inspectors can come do, so maybe we can figure out how we can get the inspectors to come more to Richford. And we know the certain areas here that are being rented and getting, like you said, the money's getting deposited in people's accounts and nobody's checking on those properties,
No.
right?
No,
So maybe that's something that we can think about doing too,
Well, and we also have a project through Vermont Legal Aid where we have a lawyer who,
She's a pit bull.
she is a pit bull,
Yeah.
and she's wonderful, but Franklin County has more evictions per capita than anywhere else in the state. More evictions per capita than anywhere else in the state. So they got a federal grant to have her come up here and try and work with eviction cases before they get to the writ of possession, and try and negotiate with landlords to fix the property or to get the back rent paid, and if the tenant wants to stay there, figure out a way to make it work for both of them. So in some of those situations, we are able to help landlords do a better job by withholding money or not leasing up until they fix things. So there is that piece that's happening, and she is working with some of your less than stellar landlords to help them do a better job and have their buildings be up to zoning and habitable.
But I don't know if that still changes some of the people who are living in them though.
Well, I just have to say, all Section 8 people aren't bad.
No, I 100% agree. We've had those talks up here in this room already. There's more people that need it for sure. But
When I think about single moms
it's
trying
the
to
ones
raise
who don't need
kids,
it.
if we didn't have Section 8, like those poor women would never be able to find safe, sustainable housing.
I get it.
Um,
I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is there's some that don't need it.
Right, and those are the ones that we're trying to focus on as an agency of the state with the Office of Economic Opportunity. That's where the federal funds are funneled through for housing funding. And so, like federal funding for housing, like I can't pay my dad, I mean, they won't pay my dad for rent. You can't rent from a relative. It has to be inspected. I mean, there's all these rules around it. And so most landlords are able to accommodate that. But just like Burlington, there's a couple of really big landlords that have a lot of properties that are a lot of problems. And you have a couple of those landlords up here. And we're slowly starting to engage with them. We have a new position in the Office of Economic Opportunity, where the sole job is to reach out to landlords in Franklin and Grand Isle County to interact with them, to educate them, to share with them what we can do to help them with federal funds and state funds, what we can't do, what we expect, things like that. So we're working real hard on that, because with the small amount of housing stock, we got to treat the few landlords we have the best we can and have good relationships with them, or then we're even in worse trouble. So we are working hard on some of the landlords that we are aware of that are problematic. But it takes time. Yes?
If someone comes to an office down here and they need housing, is Richford a cheaper place for you to put them? Or would say no, how are they comparing?
You mean to get a hotel room or to get
To
rent?
get anything, that you're gonna put someone in a housing?
It's a
Because I think if
It's
it's
always
cheaper
cheaper.
here, I think your tendency would be, let's send them up to Richford because
No,
it's cheaper up there.
It's cheaper up here, but many people have no transportation to get here or to get back to services in Franklin County. So there's a trade-off.
How about people here having the opportunity to go for a job and not go for just services? Are some of these
For a
people?
job and not,
I'm looking for, yeah, but I'm going on to something else now, and I'm sorry about this. But I think some of these people, when you're taking them somewhere for treatment, or about getting some people, a bus or something to take them somewhere for a job, there is, I guess some of them are. But I think a lot more people are capable of doing something. Welfare has become a career, and that's a lot of the problem.
yes, I agree with you on some of that. We have created some of this mess.
Yeah, because when I was young, I'm a little older than probably everybody here, and when I was that age, there was an overseer of the poor, and if anybody had to go to her for help, it was just the most embarrassing thing in the world, because your name was going to be in the town report. They
Right.
bought you a bag of potatoes or something. And
Right?
now it seems to be, and I think anybody, like the man that you were talking about, he's working, great, subsidize him. If he needs something to subsidize him, great. But let's not just give everybody everything. That's just not
I hear you.
acceptable.
And they don't have pride, like,
No, there's no problem.
they don't have pride in this community that we're all trying to change and make better.
They abuse it.
So it makes it so much harder to change when, you know, that's why, I mean, even with working with the landlords, like you're saying, I mean, I guess you could make the landlord have pride in Richford, but it doesn't mean that the landlord's gonna pick a tenant that's
They
gonna have.
haven't come to one meeting. They don't have pride for it.
Yeah,
They haven't come to one meeting.
but
They don't care.
But the landlord's not gonna make their tenant have pride. Like, I just don't know. I don't know how to fix it. I really don't.
Well, I think that is a really good point, that there is no easy answer to all of this, because the people that are experiencing homelessness that we've been working with for a while, we know pretty well, and we know, you know, kind of what they need to do. But Melinda really hit on a good point earlier, that in the last couple months, we have seen more people come into homelessness for the first time ever in Vermont. We are getting people housed slowly with federal money, CARES money, families and stuff. As fast as we get people housed and out of hotels, there are new people coming into homelessness and filling up the hotels again.
Have
And
you also seen the eviction go up too?
Yes.
well, the evictions, there's a federal moratorium on evictions right now.
No, addiction.
Oh, addiction.
Yes.
Yes.
The mask.
Yes, no, addictions, that's the other thing, I mean, this whole table, like, I've been sober 31 years, but I have seen people that have long-term sobriety, long-term, recovery fall off the wagon. We have watched people, even in short-term recovery, that are doing great, just succumb, because life is really hard right now for everybody, and so the thing that, the gentleman with the baseball cap was saying is there is no easy answer. We didn't get here overnight.
That's Andy, by the way.
Andy, thank you. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to cure this overnight. And all of our systems have problems. And when we're in this worldwide pandemic now for 7 months, every hole in our system just got bigger. And so people are falling through the cracks that otherwise we could kind of grab and shore up one by one because we're a small state, like the guy last week. I said, yeah, I give him $85 a night for a week in a hotel until he can get housed. Yeah, and he's probably going to get housed this week because we have people ready to help him. And that one's quick and easy because I have the cash, I could do it.
And
But
that's great. We don't mind helping people that are trying to help themselves, but that's not what you're finding here.
Well, that's not what we're finding in all of our hotels across the state. It's a group of people that have been chronically homeless mostly for a long time. And they didn't get here overnight, and they're not getting better being in these hotel rooms for 6 and 7 months at a time. And so we're slowly getting them housed, but we don't have enough housing stock.
But it goes even further than just the hotels.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's go a little bit further and step outside of the homelessness, right? And so the problem arises is that the opioid epidemic was here way before COVID came, right? So let me speak your language of what you're trying to get at. So in Franklin County, we have the same problem. We have hotels that are in Franklin County or St. Albans that people come in and we have no control over that. We don't have any control over the individuals that come in from Springfield, Mass. We don't have any control over the individuals that come from New York City. We don't have any control over that. And so, the law enforcement is doing, the best they can, but at the end of the day, we're surrounded by borders, right? Especially here, you've got Newport, you're here, you go up further where we are, so we have not Plattsburgh, but Ross's Point, you got Highgate, you got Morris's Line, so every corner, nook and cranny, there's a border, and this gentleman already exposed, that's one of their big jobs, is trying to see who's sneaking through the woods, who's doing this, who's doing that. So everybody's working, and all the wheels are turning, and so homelessness is just a result that we try to focus on, because if somebody has a roof over their head, they're more apt to get the sleep that they need to be able to function, and this is the hope, not that this is actually what happens, but the hope is that if they have a roof over their head, they're able to get a good night's sleep, they're able to process and function the next day to be able to utilize the resources that are available. Now, not everybody is in a position or has the willingness to even get out of that lifestyle. So if I'm speaking for myself, my father couldn't tell me, my mother couldn't tell me, and I come from a very well-known family. My parents are Ed and Rosemary White. They sold cars for 44 years in St. Albans, and were a very reputable business. But they couldn't control me. And so when I was running up here through Richford, driving a $100,000 flatbed up here on South Road, and was high on Oxycontin when I was running that flatbed, and the state trooper looked at me, and I was getting back in the car, and I had a sandal off, and I was going to drive away, and he asked me where I was going, and I looked over, and my sandal fell off. So I know totally all about the addiction process and what happens. But there was nobody stopping me until I was willing enough to stop. And so that's where the being here today, knowing that there's a bigger picture than just some people that are staying at the hotel. And so what I want to do as my professional is today, because I've already been on that side of the fence, I don't want to go back on. When I do go to that back side of the fence, I'm happy that I get to leave, because I get to go in and I get to associate with people that I want to have a second chance. And I think that everybody deserves a second chance. In St. Albans, we're dealing with the same thing that you guys are dealing with here. Believe you me, it's never ending, and that's part of the flyer that Amy was passing around earlier is, you know, you see something, you say something. And I can speak for my community, there's a lot of people that complain. But what I ask them is, are you reporting it? Are you calling? Because if nothing's, and I understand your hands going up in the air, and I totally respect and I feel bad for what you just went through.
Call, they're watching, looking around, you want me to do the call?
I would
don't
still
understand.
call.
I would still call just for the sake that it's documented. Because if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And so then when something serious actually does happen, then it's, and so you have nothing to fall back on. And that's frustrating. I totally understand it. But I want you guys to know that you're not alone here. And I am in a position today to be able to provide the services that my agency offers as the Restorative Justice Center to bring to services and have a satellite position here, whether if it's right in Richford or if it's in Enosburg, and to be able to provide those on either a weekly basis, a bi-monthly basis, whatever it is that you guys need. I guess that's the other thing that I would like to know is, outside of the housing issue that we have going on at the crossing, outside of that, what are you as a community looking for? What do you need for resources here on a bi-weekly basis, on a weekly basis? Are you getting what you need from the notch? Do you need more and more than that? Is anybody utilizing the Turning Point? Does anybody even know what the Turning Point is and what they offer? Is there housing? I mean, I talked earlier about nobody having a license. So DLS, obviously that's a big thing. People are driving around with no licenses. My office has help with that. I also just found out, and maybe put some smiles on people's faces, is effectively, hopefully fairly soon, the reinstatement fees will disappear. So that'll help some individuals be able to get reinstated quicker. So those are some of the ideas that I have, and we're just here to help.
Yeah, we want to bring you what you need, and I had a conversation with Todd Baumann, who is the CEO of NCSS, about what we could do to bring more services up here, and he's very open to that, to having more services from NCSS up here, or we could work with Howard to bring more services. It's really what you guys need, and I think with Amy and Melinda and Jody, and I'll keep coming back, that we can figure out the things that you want to work on. I would really consider like 2 or 3 big things and not a big long list, and try and affect change in a couple things and build on that. But I think the problem at the crossing, hopefully, as far as the state's position, we're not going to be putting anybody new there, and as we move them out, we should be done by the end of the month. And I hope that will settle that down. If it doesn't, that's a whole different situation, because that's Silas renting to anybody that he can rent to. And so that may be the issue that you guys want to take on. I don't know, but we can certainly help you talk to him, deliver, a clear message to him that what's been happening there isn't what you as a community want to see. I mean, I've talked to him more than once, and I'm happy to deliver that message, that as a state, we're done. And the community really wants you to take a hard look at your situation and
Maybe invite us to our meeting.
yeah, I think that's a really great start.
Yeah, Yeah, and I'll call them separately. Don't tell them that, you know, that I'm gonna, I'd love to do that. Because
I-
that's one thing I'd love to see is let's get landlords here.
I think that's,
Every meeting, maybe.
that is a brilliant idea, because again, we're more alike than we are different, and I think that if he had the opportunity to talk to you all and understood everything that you're hearing and everything I'm hearing and what you're saying, I think he would want to be welcomed in this community and want to run a place that makes sense.
That's what we would hope anyway, and that's why I say let's, you know, not just one person reach out to him, but it sounds like there's a number of people that would love for him to attend, so like I'm happy to call him, and I'm sure Kristen would be, but for you guys as well, and I would encourage you, whatever, you know, the approach to, that the goal is to find solution, right, to rectify, not to come here and be like, you did this, you know what I mean, because that's not gonna solve anything, so even though it's gonna be hard, and for some people, exactly, to do it in a strength-based, positive way.
I would like to know what his goal is for Richford.
Right.
I mean, he owns a business here, what is he hoping to?
Right,
To bring here, other than what he's shown us so far? Like, what's his vision?
Maybe people can start supporting his business again, not have Paul, nobody goes there anymore, you
Who
know?
had it before
So-
him? He hasn't had it that long, right?
Same here.
Ronnie Shelter ran it before.
He ran it down.
But Ronnie didn't take 2-in-1s, he didn't.
No, Ronnie refused.
He refused because he knew what was happening when they would come, when people would come, and the parties that would go on, and all the crimes, and how many times he had to call the sheriffs and things like that, so he,
But you also gotta realize that that border up there is closed, so we don't get any Canadian traffic whatsoever.
Right, and you
And
haven't,
and this community needs it.
right.
It ran our gas stations, our grocery stores, the crossings, people used to come down from Canada to eat there all the time. It was a booming business.
Yeah, no, I ate there about 5 years ago, and I thought it was pretty good.
But with the border closed, we're hurting.
All right, so let's invite Silas
okay?
and have a conversation with him about what we'd like to see as a community.
And maybe we can also think about 3 or 4 different things, maybe to bring resources to Richford, that, things that we really need.
I think one of the biggest things we need is something for our youth. We need something for them to focus on.
Youth?
Oh, yeah.
Youth. The cycle's just gonna keep repeating itself if we don't, like, I think we need to focus on the youth, is big here.
I think that's amazing. So I also sit on the board for the Franklin County Caring Communities, so you guys are familiar with Watershed and mentoring. So I will bring that back to.
I've been having about 4 or 5 boys, Dylan, you probably seen them, showing up, they knock on my door. Ma'am, is it okay if we use your basketball hoop? I'm like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Do you have any basketballs? So I went in the garage, got basketballs. Well, they've been showing up every day now. Every day. Ma'am, can I have a bottle of water? That's great. I feel like, but I make sure
You're the
you
teen
can't come to my
center.
house unless you do your homework. Are you doing your homework? You need to go home and do your work first, then you can come back. And but I love that they feel that they have a safe place at my house to come and play. And they know they can come knock on my door. And I did show them that I have cameras. So if I'm not there, that's you making yourself, I'm gonna see it.
So that's a really great point.
Oh, I did, I brought them out warm food bread. But I love that they felt that they had a safe place. They were very polite, very romantic. I don't even know their names, but they keep coming back. There's about 4 or 5 of them.
I'm really proud to tell you that St. Albans and Franklin County has been working for 10 years to try and get Spectrum Youth and Family Services to come into St. Albans. And by the grace of God, they had a benefactor that came up with money, and we are opening a drop-in center on Lake Street for teens in St. Albans, hopefully January 1st. That is the goal. Are they gonna break ground January 1st, or?
I think that's
But
but
it's finally coming to fruition after 11 years and 4 or 5 starts and stops. And so I think that Spectrum is poised to be able to help you guys do something up here to help support your youth. Because we know that if youth don't have somewhere to go, that they end up in trouble.
Absolutely.
Also, the Vermont project just kind of started, but then the COVID came in, so we're trying to focus ways for our youth to have things in the community, have our community interact with our youth too, and I I know the Notch was working on trying to find a place for the youth.
Yeah, Pam Parsons is an angel on earth.
Yep.
The fact that she got your grocery to stay and work that out, like she has been amazing. Go ahead, sir.
My office also deals with youth diversion as well. So, not that we want to get anybody in trouble, but we also deals a lot with, we're trying to promote prevention. So to be able to utilize some prevention or bring prevention services to this community, I think we could manage to do that.
And you all have the nicest state-of-the-art dentist center up here of any notch in the whole state. That place, my dad was a dentist, my sister is a dentist, and when I visited there when they opened, it was fantastic.
We have a beautiful town, man.
Yeah, you really do. I was talking to my colleague this morning who has Washington and Lamoille County, and I said, I'm going up to Richford tonight. And he's like, wow, what's it like up there? And I said, it's one of the most beautiful places you'll ever see in the world. It's an old railroad, old river city with the most beautiful churches and houses and great people. I mean, it's Vermont. No, this is a great place, and I came up here, I don't know, it's been 5 or 6 years now with Todd from NCSS around something that was happening in the schools with teenagers, and we were able to bring some services, and that's the goal, is that the state needs to figure out, and all of our community partners and you all need to figure out like what you want to focus on and how we can help you. And I think we're well on our way by stopping using that property as a GA hotel. That will be done by the end of the month. So
just to be mindful of everyone's time, because we've got over a half hour, I just want to remind everyone of the Harvest Festival this Sunday, which is from noon to 4. We've got pretty much everything, Andy. Is there anything you want to touch base on about that?
I think we're pretty good.
Okay, our fire department's actually putting on a little presentation, well, it's their training, but they're, we've got hay rides for the kids, pumpkins for the kids to decorate. Got a great chef over here who's providing lots of food and whatnot, and basically a lot of people in the community donated for this. I just wanted to mention that Bob, you organized the coin drop last Saturday. Do you want to tell us about that real quick, just so everybody knows?
We started in the morning. We had 3 or 4 people down there. One girl out of the high school, and the people in Richford really showed how nice they can be. And we got roughly $600. In about 4 hours. So they have done, we stood there, but the people in Richford did the work. They came by, people came by on bicycles, they were walking, they tell you, be back in a minute, I'm going over to the store. And they come back and turn around and come back, so we got good people in town. And they contributed to this. And everybody said, we'll be there, so we'll see what happens. But it was really nice to help.
So hopefully we'll have everybody there. We'll see everybody there for that this weekend. The other thing I just wanted to point out real quick is, so last week our homework was to come up with a sign, right? Because Linda had got that grant so we can put up signs around town, basically for this meeting that we're having every Thursday. So I came up with a sign. I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a copy of it. I know that we wanted to get kind of moving on these pretty quick, just so the signs can be up, and like we can put them at places that are high trafficking places, like we know, like around the crossing and the parks, things like that. So I don't know if anybody has any suggestions about this tonight, if they like it, if they don't like it. I know that a lot of the things were that they didn't want to put IDP on it because nobody knew what that was. So I decided to do Richford Community Watch and go from there. Anybody thoughts? These would be the signs, roughly about 10 signs that would be posted around town.
I like it. Simple.
I make the motion to accept it. You got a second?
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
wanna contact me, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, I know, and I've got a bunch of literature. I feel like, did you have something to say?
Sorry?
Did you have a chance to say?
I do have a question. I do have a question for the people here. How many people here are related to or know somebody who have a substance problem?
What?
A substance abuse problem.
Substance problem?
A substance abuse problem, yeah. Alcohol, drugs, whatever, right? So the common theme of these meetings is, always seems to come down to a substance abuse problem, right? And judging by the show of hands, for a lot of us, it's a personal thing, right? We know people, we're involved with people who have this issue. Hand in glove with that, a lot of the times, is poverty, is not having the resources to do things like housing and the other thing that I noticed, having come here a few times now, is that none of those people are here. So if I had any suggestion or any observation from somebody who largely sits here quiet, is maybe for the next one and going forward, we can try and reach out to some of those people who we know that are either experiencing poverty or experiencing homelessness, or are part of the community, but maybe they don't actually feel like they're part of the community because they're not here in the future, so that it's not just those of us who are sort of on top of the problem and maybe some of the people who are in the problem. That would be my observation, just listening to everyone kind of agrees where the problem lies, but none of the people who are maybe touching that problem very closely are actually here. So.
And I did take Lieutenant Burton's cards, and I did go around to those those areas and pass them out. So people are aware of this. I think the big thing is like when we start showing things, like those signs, I believe are going to be a big thing, because like I said, the people who might be afraid to take that card, now they're going to be out there, so maybe they're just going to take a walk and, oh, there's that phone number, let me, I think those are going to be a big thing, just like your show of force, your, I don't know how else to say it, but getting that out there. Also, I think that maybe during this Harvest Festival this weekend, we're going to see a lot of people there too, so maybe we can hand out some more of those flyers, and maybe a couple of us can talk to people about it, what's going on and how to, make things better.
Yeah.
Has the Harvest Festival been, are you gonna advertise it?
We already did. Bob went around to all the stores, it's been put on Facebook, it's been shared.
I mean, like not inviting, but letting people from Enosburg or St. Albans or whatever know that there's something going on in Richford this week.
Well, if they haven't seen it on Facebook or in the paper, then, I don't know how much
Yeah.
more advertising we could have done.
Yeah, and we only have like limited supplies, so basically it was supposed to be for this community. Obviously, if people from other communities come, we're not gonna say go away. But, we've got certain things donated for people in this community, so.
We were asked, by the sheriff and the Vermont State Police, if they wanted us to advertise it, but we thought that maybe it would be a little too.
Especially with COVID and everything this year. So, because we're trying to, we're gonna, enforce all the COVID-19 protocols right now.
I see the advertisement of it,
Yeah.
so.
They told me they only had so many hot dogs they're gonna give away, so they didn't know.
All right, so just so you know, like you said, there's cards and different types